The oil and gas sector is responsible for nearly a third of all greenhouse gas emissions in this country, the number one source. Until now, there hadn't been a plan for how the industry factors into the government's push to net zero by 2050.
This is a complex piece of policy.
The government is opening consultations looking at two options to drive down emissions 42% by 2030, a cap and trade system or a modified carbon tax. But no specifics are included on how much carbon pricing could increase from the $170 per ton it will reach by 2030 or what a cap may look like.
What we've said since the election last year is that we would cap at current emissions, current levels. So is it 2021, 2022? I think that would be a reasonable assumption.
There's not much specific because there's a whole problem with it. If you impose too hard a cap, you're forcing industry to try and adapt too quickly. It may not be possible. And what happens then is potentially companies just shut down production.
The cap itself would focus on emissions, not production. But oil production is an even more sensitive topic given Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the world looking for other sources of energy. The Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers warns the ideas could be counterproductive to achieving climate goals, saying imposing an emissions cap solely on Canada's oil and natural gas sector, as the paper proposes, will likely drive energy investment into other countries who may not share our high environmental and human rights standards.
We have to be walking and chewing gum at the same time.
This environmentalist wants to make sure consultations don't slow down the other emissions-slashing projects underway, and she feels a tinkering with the carbon tax would be too complicated, especially with some provincial opposition.
What did this government promise to do with oil and gas emissions? They promised to cap those emissions and make sure that they declined. And so I think the most straightforward way to do that would be by implementing a cap.
Those who want to weigh in on either option have until the end of September to respond, and the government hopes to deliver a plan by early next year. Abigail Bimman, Global News, Ottawa.